Good afternoon. It's the 28th of May, the fourth episode of Thursdays with Charlie. And I have to tell you, I'm really very happy that the number of people watching this show has gone up consistently every week. Last week, we had 364 views of the show. That's more than 50 more views than the week before. I think we're working our way up towards 400 and then 500. It's really nice. Never thought I'd be doing this. I have to thank everybody for the wonderful anniversary wishes that I got. They were posted on Facebook. I came to the church here. I got them in the mail. I got them on text messages, phone calls, emails. Thank you so much for your good wishes for the 46th anniversary of my being a priest. I have enjoyed these 46 years. I never thought I would be doing some of the things I'm doing this year. But I'm enjoying doing them nonetheless. It really is beautifully. And I have to thank people who are watching the show so very closely. Comments that I've received mention the fact that you thought I combed my hair differently last week. I probably just miscombed it. I was trying for the same look as always, but there were some nice comments that it looked better. And then some people commented on, you really need to cut your nails. So I have taken care of that. But you are watching very closely, and that is good to see. And I'm having a lot of fun doing the show. It brings back my classroom days where you're writing a lesson plan and you're preparing to do a class. And it's really like a wonderful part of my life now. So thank you much for watching. I have a sort of public service announcement. The Colorado River Food Bank, which is my favorite charity here in town, is in need of a couple of things. They are still looking for suitcases with wheels. Apparently that is very helpful for those who are trying to carry their possessions around with them all the time. So if you have any of those suitcases, they would appreciate them very much. And they're on Laughlin Civic Drive, just up the street from the Riverside. And the other thing they're looking for is they have to unload heavy boxes and they have to unload trucks and pallets. They're looking for some male volunteers who would go. Apparently right now their main workforce is female, and the heavy lifting is something that is getting harder and harder to accomplish. So if you have any male volunteers who might be willing to donate a few hours a week to the Colorado River Food Bank, you can give them a call, and their number is 702-298-9220. Again, 702-298-9220. And ask to talk to Sandy West. She'll be really glad to talk with you. Again, looking for male volunteers to help with the heavy lifting and suitcases with wheels. We appreciate that. And of course, any other volunteers who might like to help out at the food bank, maybe not for some of the really heavy work, give them a call and I'm sure they could put you to use. We support them very much for all the good that they do. Now, the elephant in the room that I have to address is what's going on with churches reopening. You all know that President Trump said that houses of worship, churches and mosques and synagogues are essential services. And that was wonderful. It was great to hear that we're essential. Nice to have it said. And then the governor of Nevada, Governor Steve Sisolak, planned a news conference for Tuesday night to announce Nevada's plans. About a half an hour before the news conference, it got canceled because the governor had been exposed to a possible contamination with the COVID virus. And then later on that night, they said there would be a video. But then there was no video because there was a problem with technical difficulties. And then about 9 o'clock at night, there was an impromptu phone press conference with the governor. And in that press conference, it was announced that casinos who have submitted a plan and the plan been approved by the gaming board could reopen as early as the 4th of June. I was thrilled about that. I'm going to be glad to see casinos back, and not only in Vegas, but here in Laughlin. But June 4th is my mom's birthday, and I'm sure that that's the best birthday gift she could be getting, is knowing that casinos are going to be open. I have a funny story to tell. When I used to come out here as a visitor from New Jersey and bring my mom with me, I would take the weekend masses from whichever priest was assigned here at the time, and there'd be the 5 weekend masses. And my mom would come to one of them, and then she would go to the casino to play. She felt that one mass was enough, even if her son was celebrating them. So she'll be delighted that her birthday was the date chosen by Nevada to open up the casinos again. Then they came to discussion on what they're going to do with churches. And restaurants and casinos, they all seem to get a 50% opening rate, that you could open with 50% of your normal population. We kind of figured we would get that, but instead we got 50 people. Churches, mosques, synagogues can have services with no more than 50 people. That's kind of different than 50%. If we use our fire codes here in Laughlin, our church is rated for just about 500 people, so 50% would give me 250 people, but they don't. They give us 50 people. So we waited for guidance from the Diocese of Las Vegas, and last night around 6:30 at night, we received a communique from the Bishop of Las Vegas saying that we can enter phase 2, not this weekend, but Saturday the 6th of June and Sunday the 7th. That would be Trinity Sunday weekend. We can enter phase 2, which means we can have services with no more than 50 people present. And that number includes the celebrant, the deacon, and electors, etc., who might be working at the service. We are still not sure what we're going to be doing with that. And I will hopefully be able to make some announcements at Mass online this Sunday about it, but we are limited to the 50 people. That includes the people working at the Mass, and we'll have to figure out some way to schedule the Masses and to have as many of them filled up close to the 50 so people can come. Well, of course, we'll do social distancing within the Mass. We're going to make it work. We don't know how. We're not yet sure whether they're going to allow us to use worship aids because people would be touching the missalettes. We're not sure yet whether we have to disinfect the entire church and all the seats after every service. We're not sure of all the details, and hopefully we'll have them day by day. But nothing is happening this weekend. We're still online with Masses this weekend, and the earliest something could happen would be Saturday night, the 6th of June, and then Sunday, the 7th of June. We're all looking forward to it. I can hardly wait to have you back. Last week in the show, I mentioned that I'm working on 5 books. And I got some comments back during the week. How could you be working on 5 books at one time? And what are the 5 books? So I thought I'd just briefly go over them because I am actually working on the 5 of them at one time. The first is one that I've been planning to do for a year now, and that's about the rural parishes in the Diocese of Las Vegas. We have 12 of us that are considered rural parishes, and we kind of encircle the whole Diocese of Las Vegas, beginning here in Laughlin, going up through Mesquite and Ely, coming down around through Round Mountain and Tonopah, coming in through Dyer and Sandy Valley, Amargosa, and all the ones that are around that circle over there. Just before this virus attacked, I was working heavily on the book, and I had decided on a title for the book. And I mentioned it to the bishop at the first Presbyteral Council meeting we had, Pastoral Council for the Diocese of the Priests. And he said, "What title have you chosen?" And this was the week the virus became really a cause that had to be dealt with. And I said, well, since we circle the Diocese of Las Vegas, I was going to call the book The Corona of Las Vegas. The bishop said, change it. So we're changing the title, obviously. But it will be about the rural parishes, the 12 of us, our history, some of which goes back way, way back to the 1800s, covers several dioceses that had control at that time, predates the Diocese of Las Vegas, and I like to think that Laughlin, with the visit of Father Garces, we go back to 1776. So that's one book coming. The second book is the one on Father Garces. I want to tell the story of this missionary who came to Nevada, the first European, the first Catholic priest to ever be in Nevada, and he was in Laughlin. And one of the things I've been thinking about doing is, as I'm working on the book, I thought I want to get the story out to as many people as possible. And one thought crossed my mind, well, why don't I do a comic book about it? Not a coloring book, a comic book. Everybody can pick up a comic book and enjoy it. It's vividly colored. It's got a good storyline. It's easy to read. So from the youngest child to the oldest adult. So currently, my first Garces book is going to be a comic, and then the main story will follow later. That's the second book over there that we're working on. The rural parishes first, and the Father Garces book. Then another book that I've been working on for a couple of years, but I really want to bring it to a conclusion, is a book about death and dying. And I know that sounds a little bit odd, but I've already chosen the title. And I mentioned this at Mass before the coronavirus. That book is going to be called See You on the Other Side. Back in New Jersey, I had a friend, Frank DeVito, who was dying, and when I went to see him for the last time, I didn't quite know what to say on the way out when I was leaving, and we both knew that we would not see one another again. And as I went to the door, I said, Frank, see you on the other side. And it seemed to work. It seemed like the right thing to say. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that when a person is sick, especially seriously ill, sometimes the priest or the deacon is the only person who can speak to that person honestly about death and dying. The family and close friends, they almost sometimes seem to be in denial. Oh, no, you're not going to die. No, you're not that sick. And I maintain that I think a lot of times the person knows that he or she is dying, and the very people who they want to express that with keep telling them, no, you're not. And they can be honest with the priest or the deacon. And I think that's a beautiful part of our ministry. And so I do want to write a book about death and dying, and the title definitely will be See You on the Other Side. The fourth book that I'm working on is one I've been working on for a couple of years in the back of my mind. It's about male spirituality. A lot of books, if you pick up on how to pray and how to have a good spiritual life, seem to be written from a feminine viewpoint. They speak of things like you want to be this beautiful flower in the garden of God. Most guys don't want to be a flower in anybody's garden. We want to be the gardener. We want to be the one taking care of it. And so I'm working on a book viewing spirituality, the same principles, but viewing them more from a male perspective. And that's been in the works for a while, and hopefully that's going to be coming to fruition soon. And the last one is one that I did not intend to write, but it's happened to me. We've been hit with this pandemic. We've been closed for almost 3 months. A lot of things have been happening in our country, in our diocese, in our state, in our parish, in our lives because of this. And I want to write about the pandemic. But I figured an unusual way to write about it. Just before this all got underway, we had a special happening here at St. John the Baptist. An owl appeared. Pascal, our owl, a couple of weeks before Easter. And he's been hanging around here. And I kind of think that in my mind, he'll always be connected with the pandemic experience, that we had an owl that was, to me, a sign of favor, a sign of we're going to get through, a sign of hope. Kind of like the Holy Spirit being the dove, well, we have the owl. And so I think the book is going to be titled Pascal and the Pandemic. And that's going to be coming out as probably as soon as I can piece it together. Again, I did not intend to write it, but it seems to be writing itself as we're going through these months. That's it. So I really am working on 5 books rather, and working on them and having fun doing them. That's how I spend my free time very, very much. Want to say a couple of things about this pandemic thing. The hardest part for me, besides restaurants being closed, is the fact that when I preach on Sunday at the online Mass, I'm preaching to a virtually empty church. I don't know if you realize how difficult that is. Having an audience, having a congregation is so important to a speaker, whether that speaker be a priest, a deacon, just a speaker, a comedian, anything. You need that audience. You need that congregation. I don't have it. I have a few people who are readers and the videographers, the deacons, but I don't have a congregation. And I do miss that very, very much. And it reminded me of my radio experience. And some of you may know about this, some of you may not. But back in the 1970s, when I was a newly ordained young priest, there was a country radio station in New York City. I know that sounds really odd, but it was. It was WHN in New York City, and it was the only country station in the New York metropolitan area at the time, in the mid-early 1970s. And I used to listen to it every day because I love country music. One of the things that they had that I thought was a little bit unusual, they had a radio preacher. They had a preacher who would give what they called 1-minute sermonettes. They were mini sermons for 1 minute long, and they would play them throughout the day. And of course, since I was listening to the music whenever I could, I would get to hear a lot of these mini sermons, and they were by several people over the course of a day, over the course of a week or a month. And I listened, and in my mind, they were not good. I sat there and I said, oh, no, you could do so much. This is a station I love. Why are you doing this? I really need to do something about this. And so, again, back in the days of before the internet, in the 1970s, I wrote a letter to WHN radio station in New York City. And I explained that I was a priest in New Jersey. I listened to your radio station regularly. I love country music, but your preacher is awful. Something has to be done. These moments, these sermonettes could be so good, and they're not. I waited a few days, and I get a phone call. And the phone call was from the station manager, a man by the name of Charlie K. And Charlie K himself called me and talked to me, and he said, all right, do you think you could do any better? And I said, yes, I do. I think I could do better. He said, all right, come on in. And so I went in, and they did a trial. And the way they did it is you were in a sound booth, a little tiny booth. And the only person in the room was the technician who was doing the recording. And they would record about a dozen of these at one time, one after the other, and then play them at various segments during the day and night, 24 hours a day. Well, Charlie K liked my sermonettes, and so for about 3 years, I was the radio preacher on WHN, the only country western station in New York. Now, there's one funny story about that. One Sunday, I was at church at my parish in New Jersey, in Mountainside, New Jersey. One of my parishioners comes up to me and he says, you nearly killed me last night. And I said, what? He said, you nearly killed me last night. I said, first of all, I wasn't with you last night. And second of all, I have no desire to kill you. So tell me what happened. He said, I was at a party. He said, I had a few drinks, not a lot. But about 2 o'clock in the morning after the party, I was driving home down Route 22 in New Jersey. And I had the radio station on. He said, and suddenly you were in the car with me. I said, oh, you heard one of my sermonettes. I realized that I hadn't told the parish that I was doing these things, and here this man heard my voice in his car late at night. He said, "You almost killed me." I said, "Well, I'm glad I didn't." And that was the end of my radio career. Now, we've been ending the show by having a visit from Pascal, or his cousin, and so we're not going to disappoint you. Of course, the owl comes down, and you can hear him. It's almost as if he were real. And he brings us a message once again. Let's see what his message is today. These are messages you might be familiar with. The Latin phrase Carpe Diem, and the Latin phrase Caveat Emptor, So Carpe Diem and Caveat Emptor. Both of these have interesting histories. Carpe Diem means seize the day, more exactly, pluck the day, pick the day, find the best in the day. And it actually was written in one of the odes by the Roman poet Horace 23 years before Christ. So in 23 BC, Horace was writing his Roman poetry, and he wrote in one of his poems, Carpe Diem, seize the day, pluck the day, choose the best out of the day. It's become kind of a thing that we say, we remember. You want to find the best in the day. It actually has a little bit of movie history. Robin Williams in the movie The Dead Poets Society quotes that ode from Horace and uses seize the day, Carpe Diem, he says. And so I thought that would be an appropriate thing. We want to make the best out of every day. We want to find that thing that makes that day special for us. And the second part is Caveat Emptor. Literally translated, let the buyer beware. We still use the word caveat. Be careful. It's a warning over there. And actually, this is connected with our coronavirus. On March 4th of this year, just as things with the pandemic were starting to get rolling, one of the news broadcasters I heard on TV said, Caveat Emptor. Let the buyer beware. And he was using it in terms of being careful about the information you receive from TV, from Facebook, from elsewhere on the internet, from the radio, that you may not be sure that it's true. You might just be hearing it. And so I thought the two of those would be particularly appropriate. Caveat emptor, beware, judge everything, but carpe diem, seize the day, find the best in each day. And as it happens, both of those phrases have a little connection with my history. Years ago, I was able to go to Hawaii. And I was in Hawaii with a friend of mine, and we were there for a week. And one of the things I quickly discovered was that Hawaii was rather expensive. But on the streets of Honolulu, there were people who were trying to sell timeshares. Buy a timeshare, share in a condominium in Hawaii. Now, I had no intention of buying a timeshare, but these people would sell you the timeshare, or they would talk to you about it, and they seemed to have a limit of about 90 minutes of working with you before they had to go on to the next person. So I figured I could handle that for 90 minutes and not buy anything, and they would give you a prize. Maybe the prize were 2 tickets to a show, or 2 free dinners, or a case of pineapples. And I said, well, I could do 90 minutes of work every day and get something for us every night. So my friend thought it was crazy, but he said, go for it. And so I did. And so for a week in Hawaii, every day I would go out in the morning, find a timeshare salesman, sit with the person for 90 minutes, say no, not buy anything, and collect my free prize. And then at night we would go out for dinner or go out for a show or collect our case of pineapples to bring home. I might mention that I came home with 7 cases of pineapples on United Airlines that trip. But the connection with the Latin phrases, one salesman was particularly persistent. He was just going and come on, you have to buy this. This is a perfect opportunity. And I kept saying, well, why do I need a kitchen? He said, so you can cook breakfast. I don't cook. And if I'm on vacation, I certainly would not cook. Well, you would have an extra space. You would have a bedroom. I said, I'm a priest. I said, I'm not married. I don't need an extra bedroom or space. And I kept countering. And finally, I said, the problem here, and we were getting near the 90-minute mark. I said, the problem is we're looking at this from two different angles. And I grabbed his clipboard and I took it away from him. And I grabbed his magic marker and I wrote over all his writing, I wrote, Carpe Diem, and I turned it around to him. And he said, what's that? I said, that's the way you're looking at this. Carpe Diem, seize the day. This is an opportunity that will never come your way again. This is wonderful. He said, right, that's it. I said, yeah. Took the clipboard, turned it around, and wrote caveat emptor. And I turned it around to him, and I said, and this is how I'm looking at it. Caveat emptor. He said, what does that mean? I said, let the buyer beware. You might be telling me something that's not true. I may not need what you're trying to sell to me. It may not be good for me to buy it. So you're looking at it from Carpe Diem, and I'm looking at it from caveat emptor. It was at this moment that his supervisor came by, and there I was holding the clipboard, lecturing the salesman. That ended right there. They gave me my prize, and I went off with another case of pineapples. And that was my experience with Carpe Diem and caveat emptor. Perhaps we could apply that to our coronavirus or getting through this pandemic. Carpe Diem. Find some good in every day. Seize that moment. Take advantage of it and enjoy it. And caveat emptor. Be careful with what you read or see. Judge it. Not all of it is true. Not all of it is something that is worthwhile spreading or passing on or acting on. Just try to judge. Make a balance between the two. Carpe Diem, caveat emptor. That's our message from me, from Pascal and his friend over here. And we wish you a wonderful day, and thank you for being with us for this Thursdays with Charlie.